So, what if? Two of the most smallest words in the English language, and yet they can change absolutely everything for us, can't they? They can open up possibilities. What if God moves? What if this works? What if healing comes? What if God is absolutely in this? But for most of us, if we're honest, what if has become something darker, something that brings fear? What if it goes wrong? What if I fail? What if they leave? What if I'm not enough? What if the worst thing actually I'm imagining comes about? What if God doesn't turn up for me? And those two words, instead of breathing hope, they bring fear, and they bring a negative thought pattern to us that brings us into a spiraling place where we're just in this catastrophic place of doom. And today we're going to be talking about fighting the what if mindset, how it leads to paralysis, anxiety, depression, and how only the way to neutralize it is to take the every what if straight to Jesus and to view it through the lens of Psalm 91. This isn't theory, it's survival, it's discipleship, and it's warfare. My name is Neil O'Boyle. This is the waypoint where we're finding our way and living with purpose. I have been in so many vision meetings in my time in leadership, and it usually starts out with big picture, what we're going to do and how we're going to do it, and it's going to be amazing and incredible. And then we get to the budget, and the budget kind of steals all life and joy from the dreaming that's just happened. And suddenly this question of what if comes into the equation. What if we don't have the money to do this? What if actually we can't raise it? What if? And what if is not harmless. It's the beginning of a story we start writing in our heads without God in the room. What if is our imagination baptized in fear. It's our creativity hijacked by anxiety. It's our brain preparing for disaster that hasn't happened, and most of the time it won't happen. The devil doesn't need to attack our bodies when he can attack our imagination, right? If he can control your what ifs, he can control your peace. If he can take your what if from positivity to negativity, then that will lead to paralysis. We stop trying, we stop moving, we stop risking, we stop trusting, and anxiety spikes, depression grows, hope completely shrinks, because the story running in our head now is louder than the truth that God speaks over our life, and we stop hearing what he's saying, and we're listening to doubt and to fear, and it's taking complete joy out of our life and out of our existence. What if becomes the all for itself, and we just follow the script of negativity? But here's the truth. You don't defeat what if by ignoring it, right? So what if comes into your brain and you're like, I'll push it to a side. Now, you can do that if you've got enough bank of evidence that actually this what if is never going to be a problem. If you can have that evidence in store because you've got the experience, then it won't take control. It won't be a problem. It won't kind of deep roots itself. But actually, if you don't have that evidence, then ignoring it is a problem, because your brain will bounce right back and say, you can't say for certain that's not going to happen. You don't have the evidence to say that's not going to happen. And one thing we cannot do is lie to our brains. You defeat what if by bringing it to Jesus. Jesus never said, pretend you're not scared. He said, come to me. You see, we can't pretend we're not scared. We can't pretend it's not an issue, because our brain kicks right back and says, but I know you're lying. I know that this is a fear to you. You bring your actual fear, not the polished version, not the spiritual version, the real fear of what if you don't tell anyone. And here's why. What we hide grows. What we bring to Jesus breaks. Freedom comes. And that's why we need to bring it to him. The moment you say, Jesus, here's my fear, here's the exact thing I'm scared will happen, the power of that fear starts to collapse because you've named it. By just naming it, we disarm so much. Not because the fear disappears instantly, but because you stop facing it alone. You've named it. Your brain has recognized it, that actually you're not lying to yourself, and Jesus is taking a position within this situation. Now, Psalm 91 is God's answer to what if mindset. It's not poetry, actually. It's a weapon. Listen to the opening lines. Whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. Now, that might sound nice and poetic, but what if I'm not safe? becomes, He is your shelter. Go further with that. What if I, Neil, am not saved? Actually, Neil, God is your shelter, right? I personalize that verse. What if something bad happens? Now becomes, He is your shadow, your covering, your fortress. What everything falls apart becomes, no, He is your refuge and He is your strength. Psalm 91 does not pretend danger doesn't exist. It simply says danger does not win. And that's huge, because we are recognizing that we are in a fight, that there is psychological warfare, that spiritual warfare enters into our mind, and we can overcome it through the Psalms. We can overcome it by rooting ourselves in what the Bible actually says. Your fight what if with even if, right? So there's a switch that happens. The way we fight it is moving from what if to even if. And even if is incredibly powerful because it's also psychologically saying, okay, if it happens, it happens. It's disarming anxiety by saying, yeah, it could happen, but that's okay, because even if the world shakes, God is faithful. Even if everything collapses, God is still your refuge. Even if the fear is real, His protection is greater. Now, you will have evidence that you are built up over time in your journey with God that actually begins to pull up the weeds of doubt in these moments. So let's talk practically about what this actually looks like. How does what if turn into anxiety, depression, paralysis? It's simple. A thought enters your mind. What if I can't cope? We've had those thoughts, right? What if they reject me? What if the illness gets worse? Secondly, we agree with it. You don't fight it. You don't question it. You just accept it as truth, right? It's just like, yeah, I could get worse. This could be bad. Your body reacts. Stress chemicals rise in that moment. Your breathing, it changes. Your heart rate spikes. You relive the fear repeatedly. Rehearsing disaster becomes a habit. You're now believing it. You stop acting. Fear makes decisions for you. Life becomes smaller. Possibilities collapse. And here's the really scary part in all of this. Most of this happens without you noticing. It's happening in the background at your subconscious level. This is why Jesus teaches us to take every thought captive. Because when that doubt comes in initially, you need to take it captive, because a rogue thought becomes a rogue emotion, which becomes a rogue lifestyle. And so we need to combat this, and we need to neutralize it in a way that is powerful and a way that works. So we do this through a few simple steps. Here's the practical, spiritual, simple method. Step 1, name the what if. Say it out loud or write it down. What if I lose my job? What if I get sick? What if my child doesn't come back to God? What if I'm alone forever? What if this never gets better? You can't fight what you won't name. And that's really, really, really important. You can't fight what you won't name. This is not a Voldemort situation where he who must not be named. This is a situation where we must name it. So, step 2, bring it to Jesus. Pray something like this. Jesus, I'm scared. This is the thought chasing me down, and I need to give it to you. I don't know what to do with it. Honesty destroys the power of fear. And we absolutely have to recognize this isn't just a spiritual reality. This is a psychological reality. Step 3, put Psalm 91 between you and the fear itself. Take the fear and answer it with scripture. What if I'm not saved? Well, Psalm 91, He's my refuge and He's my fortress, right? What if something attacks me? Psalm 91, His faithfulness is my shield. What if danger comes near? Psalm 91, no harm will overtake me. What if I'm alone? Psalm 91, He is with me in trouble. Step number 4, personalize Psalm 91 as a prayer. Not he who dwells, but I dwell in the shelter of the Most High. I rest in the shadow of the Almighty. I will not fear the terror of night. No disaster will come near my home. When scripture becomes your scripture, fear loses oxygen. Now, there's something powerful and supernatural about praying God's promises in first person. You're not just reading words, you're declaring truth when this happens. You're aligning your mind with heaven. You're preaching to your fear. When you read Psalm 91 out loud, personalized, you are rebuilding trust. You're replacing the lies that are going on and taking root in your life. You're restoring it with peace, reclaiming your imagination, reshaping your emotional responses. You are training your mind to respond to fear with faith. And that might seem so far away. That might seem so distant, so impossible to do. But there is a practice of a habit that needs to be done here over and over again. Speaking the truth. I'm afraid, but I know that God is with me. I'm afraid, but I know that God has come through for me in the past. I'm afraid, but I know that God feels what I'm feeling right now. So let me flip what if for a moment. What if the miracle actually happens? What if God actually provides? What if the breakthrough comes? What if healing arrives? What if this isn't the end? What if God is nearer than you think? What if your fear is lying and Jesus is telling the truth? What if the story in your head is not the story God is writing? You don't have to live paralyzed by what if. You can walk in confidence through Psalm 91. You can pray fear away. You can rewire your mental scripts. You can take every fear to Jesus and watch him transform it in your life. So here's your challenge this week. Every time a what if shows up, answer it with Psalm 91 until your spirit remembers who's really in control. Because the God who covers you, shelters you, rescues you, and walks with you is bigger than every what if your mind can create. My name is Neil O'Boyle, and this is The Waypoint. And next time we're going to be looking at another episode about how we can bring Jesus into the midst of what's going on in our lives. But here's what I know, that when what ifs come into my life, and they do, and they usually take a negative format. What if this goes horribly wrong? What if actually there's truth behind my fear? What if? And usually it comes at night. And I open my Bible and I take it to Psalm 91 and I read it and I personalize it and I read it over and over and over and over again. It isn't that God says you will be protected from everything. There will be a fight. There will be challenges, but God says, I see you, I've got you, I'm with you, and I will keep you. Come rest in my shelter. May you know that this week, and may you rest in the peace of Jesus, who's got your what if and can turn it into something spectacular.